Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from Deltiasgaming.com. Today I want to share with you my Magic Sorcerer PvE build called Ignition. This video we're going to cover all the juicy information, gear for both solo and group, skills with flexible slots, champion points, consumables, and more. You're going to want to watch this video if you loved range casters with a ton of survivability and frankly one of the easiest and fun combat playstyles in Elder Scrolls Online. Magic Sorc has been good since day one in ESO and is still one of the best, and I'm going to explain to you what I use and why. Timestamps are below in the description if you wish to skip ahead, as well as other important links like the written build. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, turning alerts on as it helps my channel grow. Thanks for watching. The first gear setup, we're going to talk about solo. And for solo gear sets, what I would run optimally is 5 pieces of Medusa. This comes from Ark's Corinium dungeon, and you're going to run it on your front bar with a fire staff. So the way I run it is on a necklace and a ring. I have one body piece that's heavy, and then I have a fire staff on my front bar. So it's only active on our front bar. This is going to give us a lot of crit. It's going to give us minor force, the exact same buff that Barb Trap or Channel Acceleration do. So it's going to free up a bar slot, which is very important on a Magic Sorc because we have so many useful abilities. So that's going to be your main 5 piece. The extra jewelry piece is going to be Ring of the Pale Order. This is a mythic set. It has incredible survivability, and it's only going to get better next patch. This will also free up another bar spot instead of running Crit Surge because it'll offer you something very, very similar, though you'll have to rely on Spell Power Potions for that buff. So 5 pieces of Medusa, 1 Pale Order, we're going to run 1 Monster Helm, and I go with Valken Scoria and Medium. So we're going to have 5 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy. Valken Scoria is going to give a Spell Pen with the 1 piece. I run this primarily because I'm not doing coordinated dungeons and or trials, and I'm playing the solo primarily or pugging Vetch dungeons, meaning people aren't going to be running all the necessary buffs and debuffs, so that extra Spell Pen goes a very long way if I can't rely on a coordinated group. You could also run something that gives you spell damage and or max magic would also be good. And then my main 5 piece that's going to be on at all times is False Gods. This is from the Trial Sunspire. Very easy to collect. I would just get the normal one if you could, or if you do veterans, you could always get Perfected. It's going to reduce the cost of things, giving you back magic when you kill stuff, making you fast and mobile. It's just a no-brainer for either solo or groups where you can't control the buffs and the debuffs. It's going to be very vital. So now for group, when you have a pocket healer or you're doing something coordinated with trials and so on, what I would run is 5-piece Mother Sorrow on at all time, 5-piece Medusas on it at the front bar. So what you're going to do is you're going to drop the 1-piece Scorias, you're going to drop the Pale Order ring, and then you're going to slot in 2 5-pieces and a Monster Helm. The Monster Helms are your choice. Zon's is really good, single target damage, Grothar, AoE, but then you have to play in melee, so not really that applicable for a Magic Sorc. But what I like to use is Blargs. Blargs is really good because it's insane burst when you use an ultimate. However, if you're doing trials where the fights last very long, specifically veteran trials, this probably isn't going to be optimal. So pick something that works for you based on the content. I'd recommend Zons if you're doing longer single target fights, Blargs if you're doing veteran dungeons and you need quick 12 seconds of massive burst. Traits, you're going to run all divines if you can on the traits, all magic glyphs on the body. On the jewelry, I run the Bloodthirsty trait with spell damage and chance. If you struggle with sustain and or you have a race that doesn't favor magic, I'd go with 1 recovery. On the weapons, I go with Precise on my front bar and Infused on my back bar with a spell damage enchant. So both of these setups should work very well and be close to meta next patch, whether it's solo or group, when Blackwood comes out in June. And there'll be some small adjustments maybe, but it's going to be worth collecting this gear right now because it's going to be very good next patch as well. Let's switch gears and talk about the skills. Okay, we're going to talk about our front bar first, which is going to be active with Medusa, regardless of the sets that we're running. This is the fire staff that we're going to choose. It's going to be for single target and damage. This is our damage bar, and the Sorc is very, very easy to play with this. So we're going to work left to right, Boundless Aegis. What this does, it gives you a little bit of mitigation, which is nice, but it increases your max magic by a massive amount. So it's going to give you just something bonus, just sitting there, both in terms of mitigation and for max magic, allowing you to do damage, and then making it much easier to play this. It's just more advantageous than running Inner Light. I'm going to skip Crystal Fragments for now, and we're going to go to Twilight Matriarch, summon a Twilight Matriarch to deal damage and heal you and your allies. This is the morph that I use for solo play and or uncoordinated groups because the heal is so strong. Even on a DPS, I can get 20k heals, allowing me to solo almost anything. And it's very nice if you're pugging dungeons and you need to off heal a little bit, because believe me, people will stand and poop and your healer might die. So this thing comes in really handy. You're going to want to switch morphs if you're doing more serious high-end content, because it will do a lot of damage just sitting there. So summon it, keep it active at all times. Some of the solo arenas, it will die. You'll need to resummon it. And if it's already summoned out, you recast it for a burst heal. Fantastic ability, though we have to double bar it in order to keep it active. Okay, Force Pulse. This is going to be our main spam build that you're going to use in between putting your ground effects and buffs up. And it's just going to be range. It's going to hit fire, shock, and ice and damage some nearby enemies. What you're going to do is kind of use this and wait for the crystal fragments to proc. You'll hear a sound, your skill bar will actually light up a different color, and that's when you fire off frags. It's going to deal more damage, cost less, and essentially be an insta-cast, making it so much fun. So the entire play loop on the Magic Sorc is very, very fun. You're spamming your main spammable attack on your front bar in between weaving and then putting your ground effects up and firing off frags. It's really satisfying because you know when that frag goes out, it's going to hit like a truck. So that's where you use Force Pulse and Crystal Frags. The last ability up is really a very, very flexible spot. There's so many different uses for it. So we're going to go with something common, Mage's Wrath, and this is an Execute. Now, I do swap this in and out constantly because Mage's Wrath on a Sorc really ramps up the damage at 20% or less. So if I'm playing VMA, if I'm playing a dungeon, if I'm playing something, those boss fights don't last very long. So I might not run this because I'm only going to cast it once or twice per fight. Not very useful. Something that is extremely useful, I'll probably do another video on, that I would suggest you slotting, is Camouflage Hunter. What this is going to do is give you minor berserk when you're standing behind enemies and you crit them. Remember, we have high crit. This can be a little redundant if a healer is running combat prayer and constantly spamming it on you, but rarely, if ever, you're going to have 100% uptime. This allows you to prioritize hitting enemies from the flank or behind. It also comes with another passive. If you get a killing blow, you'll generate some ultimate if your fighter's guild is maxed out as well. So it's just another ability to slot on your front bar, allowing you to increase damage and ultimate gen, making it so simple to play this. You have Force Pulse and Crystal Frags. If you have Camo Hunter on it, incredible. If you struggle with sustain, you're playing solo, I'd swap Elemental Drain in here for the Destruction Staff. It's going to lower resistances. It's going to allow you to get some magic sustain. It's not going to cost anything. Really good tool. Another really good tool, damage over time effect, is Haunting Cursed. It's going to blow up twice. Fantastic in solo or group play. So make sure to swap that in and out if it's appropriate. The ultimate Shooting Star, just slotting, it's going to give us some bonuses so you can see what we're doing here. And then also it's very cheap on a Magic Sorc to use this, and it's going to provide a nice stun. So it isn't my go-to ultimate, but it can come in handy if you're bursting down something real quick. Let's go to bar 2, and that's a Lightning Staff. This purpose is for buffs and dots. Boundless Storm, consider this a flex spot, but it gives you lightning damage to nearby enemies with electricity, 23 seconds in a short burst of speed, plus it gives you physical and spell resistance. Fantastic ability for solo and or group play, though you're not going to get a whole lot of the damage unless you're standing really close. So if you're playing coordinated trials, you may want to flex this out. We have to double bar Twilight Matriarch since it will stay active the whole time. I'm going to skip that. Hardened Ward is a damage shield. This morph gives you a bigger shield. The other morph is very valuable. It gives you Minder Intellect along with your group mates, increasing magic recovery. So if you want a bigger shield, you're playing solo and you like this survivability, go Harden, or switch the Morph if you want a little bit more sustain. Now we have two ground-based AoEs around 10 seconds. Flood Lightning, massive AoE, allies can synergize this, deals tons of damage, along with Unstable Wall of Elements for the Destruction Staff, very similar. Lots of AoE, explodes, really good to pair these, especially for solo play. You put these two down, let them do work, bar swap, and go into the Force Pulse, Crystal Frag gameplay loop. Very simple to keep up this rotation. Last ability is Elemental Rage. What's useful about it on a Lightning Staff lasts about 11 seconds, which our Blarg's proc is going to last about 12 seconds. So it's very good for solo or veteran dungeons to absolutely melt down bosses. So I love putting my ground effects AoEs down, getting my buffs up, popping this. Blarg's goes off, I go to my front bar and I just do frags. Crystal frags, force pulls, things will absolutely melt for around 10 seconds. So we look at a rotation in buffs. Let's assume we're not using Mage's Fury and our front bar is really just 2 active skills. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure your Twilight's out. The next thing is you just have 1 buff, Boundless Storms on your back bar, 23 seconds. Very easy to maintain that. Then you're going to have 2 ground effect AoEs that do damage. So you're going to start on your back bar, you're going to light attack, cast Lightning Flood, Unstable Wall of Elements, and bar swap. And then you're going to get in the gameplay loop. All you're doing is doing Force Pulse, light attack weaves in between, firing off the Crystal Frags when it's a free cast, and then going back to your back bar about every 10 seconds, recasting your 2 ground effect AoEs. And then when Boundless Storm falls off, you're going to cast that as well. Assuming you have Mage's Wrath on your bar, once the mob reaches about 20% health, then you'll start using that as your primary spammable. Still firing off C-Frags, still putting down your ground effect AoEs, but that becomes your spammable about 20% health. If you're not using it, it's just much simpler. Okay, next up we're going to talk about the champion points. We're going to start in the fitness tree. I'm going to go over just the slottables. If you want a much more detailed guide, look at my website, link in the description below. I go with the 3 in the red tree: Rejuvenation, Ironclad, Boundless Vitality, Siphoning Spells. These are the optimal ones that I found. Going into the Warfare tree, I'll run Fighting Finesse, Deadly Aim, Thaumaturge, and Biting Aura. And the green tree is really flavoring for you. I like the Treasure Hunter, Rationer, Liquid Efficiency, and there's also one that increases out of combat movement speed. Those seem to work very well for me. Okay, let's talk about consumables. For the food that I run is buy stat, since sustain is not an issue when I'm playing solo or in a group. And there's the buy stat blue food that gives you max health, max magicka. You could always run Clockwork Citrus, which is a gold food if you struggle with sustain, but that shouldn't be an issue. Potions, I run that give potions that give me back max magicka, spell power, and spell critical, because I don't have those buffs on my bar. So I'm running those on cooldown with medicinal use passive from alchemy maxed out. That gives me 100% uptime on these buffs. I'll also carry with me some tripods as a backup through tough fights. So those 2 are the potions you're going to want to keep on you. Poisons on my front bar, I just run the simple max damage health ones on my front bar. You can either get these from traders, craft them yourself, or sometimes daily reward crown store items come in there, making it very useful to use those. The Mundus Stone I would suggest using right now is the Shadow. It's very nice because it gives us a lot of crit damage, which we already have a lot of crit from our gear sets. You could run the Thief if you wanted more crit, but I found more damage with the Shadow. Racial choices, the High Elf is probably the overall best because it provides the most damage and sustain. However, my favorite in the game is Dunmer. Reason why is you can play stamina or magic. You can get a max stamina and max magic pool, very useful, and you get max weapon and spell damage. So if you want to swap between stamina and magic, it's a great race for that. Also, the other passive that's important is flame resistance. There's tons and tons of flame mechanics in PvE and PvP, making it a really good passive, though you won't have the resource sustain other ones give you. Speaking of resource sustain, Breton's a really good one for all-out resource sustain. And that's the build. Magic Sorc, one of the strongest PvE classes in the game. Range, high burst, a lot of fun. It's just very simple and very survivable, fast. It looks cool. And I'll tell you this, it's been fun day one. It's been really powerful day one. And it's always remained right there on the top as one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, solo or group damage in the game. And I would say it's only going to get stronger. It's still a lot of fun. So pick it up, use this as a base, and adapt it to your playstyle. Maybe throw in some things, take off some things, and make it work for you, because that's what it's all about. Thanks for watching.